did him wrong. They did this boy wrong. It was worse than I imagined. Hey guys, David here. So at the end of my review for the very popular movie right now, Suicide Squad, I mentioned that there's a lot to talk about, but it would have made for a very long review. Well, here's the answer to that. It's time for my spoiler discussion of Suicide Squad. So if you have not seen the movie, I definitely suggest you do not watch this video. Check out my review, decide your thoughts on whether you're going to check out the flick, then come back and watch. If you don't care, watch it. And if you have seen the movie, then feel free to go along with the ride. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what makes this movie a very pivotal part of the DC extended universe, whether it be for better or for worse. And with that in mind, looking back at the film, there's really not a whole lot to really spoil when it comes to the main plot of the movie. I mean, bad guys are broken out by Amanda Waller because Enchantress, who is actually the main villain, which we all kind of had an idea was going to be the case from the trailers, because you see her kind of like controlling things that look very Enchantress-esque, and she is pretty much the main villain along with her brother, who she brings to life, and it's the two of them that are wreaking havoc within, I believe, Midway City, which is like the DC's answer to Chicago, and that's where the Suicide Squad have to go in there and deal with that shit, while at the same time the Joker is trying to recuperate Harley Quinn from the clutches of Amanda Waller herself. That was the main pivotal storyline of the movie, and it really plays out as you would expect it, especially when you go into the city and it becomes much more straightforward, which to me was a little bit more enjoyable than the montage music video-esque beginning of the movie, which apparently was somewhat of an unpopular opinion. But what I do believe was considered a very spoilery aspect to this movie is all of its connections to the DC extended universe. The first one right off the bat is the fact that the Suicide Squad is kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to the arrival of Superman. We have Amanda Waller explicitly saying that to the government guys, while at the same time showing a very quick flashback of her entering the building with some guys showing Remember Superman shirts, along with a savory flashback to Superman's funeral at the end of Batman vs Superman, which I just boasted in my girlfriend's face, like, hey, in case you forgot, her boyfriend's dead. So it's nice to see that besides in the trailer where that guy mentioned Superman, Amanda Waller herself is also taking into consideration that what if another Superman is not so nice, he's not saving people, what do we do then? Then came the next guy, the big one, Batman, who showed up in that scene with the Joker and Harley driving in the purple Lamborghini, and it was a cool scene because of something that I really enjoyed about moments in this film where they really did cater to some DC aspects about that universe, whether it be in the movies or even in the comics. That scene where Batman lands on top of the Lamborghini and Joker's like, we got company, and Harley's like, get off, you're ruining day night. Like, there was something about that scene that reminded me an awful lot of the animated series, but in a very good way, where I'm like, can we just take this little bit and just extend it into a full-on movie? I would love that. And there were plenty of other moments like that. We have little flashes of Harley in that OG Harley Quinn suit, like the clown, like the Jester suit, where she's got the little things hanging off her head right here, as well as her pulling it out from her wares when they're giving back to her, as well as the rest of the Suicide Squad, so that they can then go on the mission. You see her boasted along with the mallet, so that was pretty cool, as well as the whole notion of them paying attention to things from the comics, like Deadshot's daughter, and having him be very emotionally driven by that, whether it be by the letters that Rick Flag was withholding from him, or him actually seeing her in the climax. And of course, the answer to why these guys don't just say fuck you and run off and just do their own thing under the control of Amanda Waller. Yeah, that point was driven way home by offing off Slipknot by blowing his head off. Of course, PG-13 style. You don't see like blood and guts or anything. It just goes like that, and he's just hanging off without a head. I laughed. I laughed out loud because we had an assumption that Slipknot was going to be the one to give his life. Because the big catch about the Suicide Squad and why they're called Suicide Squad is because every time they go on a mission, one of them is bound to die. And that was the big thing about them in the comics. Here, we kind of had a notion that Slipknot was going to be that guy because there were so many shots and scenes from the trailers and some of the photos that were released that didn't have him in them at all. So we're like, yeah, I mean, are they really marketing Slipknot all that much as opposed to all the other characters? Even fucking Katana and Diablo were getting like clips released of them. Little did I know that the guy had literally like 2 minutes of screen time in the movie, and who knows, maybe he had a couple of other scenes that were cut, because obviously there was the big debacle about scenes being cut and whether or not this was the director's cut, and apparently they said that it is, but at the same time I'm not buying it. Anyways, it came to a humongous, unintentionally hilarious surprise to see Slipknot getting offed that quickly. I laughed my ass off, and most of me feels like I shouldn't have. But going back to Batman, his appearance in this movie with that scene of Joker and Harley in the Lamborghini, as well as the one that I wasn't really expecting that much, which is the one with Deadshot and his daughter in the alleyway. It was the combination of those two scenes, the 1-2 punch of those two scenes of having Batman in there, played by Ben Affleck, who I honestly, for some reason, I know I saw the set photos, but for some reason I thought that they were going to show Batman with like from certain angles to where it could have been anybody in that suit, but it was actually Ben Affleck reprising his role as Batman, and not for the only 2 times in the movie. You're going to see him again later on, which I'll get to that in a second, but his inclusion in those 2 scenes, especially in the one that I wasn't expecting with Deadshot, really hit home with me, saying that yeah, this is happening. We're getting an extended universe, and I'm starting to get used to it. It's being rather cool to see all these characters interact with one another. So it was even more surprising to see the Flash in Suicide Squad. Flash shows up to thwart Boomerang during his little introduction, and that was really cool. Pop trivia: Zack Snyder was actually the one to direct that scene, because at the moment they were shooting Justice League, so they're like, yeah, you know what, you got the suit, why not just bring your boy over here, you can direct this scene. That took me genuinely by surprise. I was not expecting that. It was really, really cool. And now looking back at it, what made it even cooler was the fact that it wasn't cut, as opposed to the shit ton of scenes that they cut from the actual script of the film, which a lot of people were saying was a really good script, but now after watching the finished product, everybody's like confused Jackie Chan. Recently, a list of scenes that were probably cut from that final edit that we saw in the theater was released, and there were so many of them that really explained some things that were just suddenly happening in the movie, or they were probably able to explain why some characters weren't written very well. Case in point, at the end, when Joker finally is able to rescue Harley, his helicopter crashes. He disappears, and then boom, all of a sudden, he appears in the final frame of the fucking movie. How do you escape that humongous helicopter crash? Who knows? But you do get to see a snippet of it in the trailer where he like detonates a grenade and he's like, bye bye. You see that in the trailer, not in the movie. I don't mind scenes being cut from the movie that I know are not going to add to the finished product, so I'm like, okay, fine, you have to cut that, whatever. It could have been cool, but I understand that you have to cut it because I know that's how the business works, and I know I'm going to have to deal with it when I get to that point in my life. But I feel like that could have been integral to explain what the Joker was up to. And guess what? Joker himself is wondering the same thing. And some of them, I'm sure, could have explained some of the things that the Joker does, what kind of personality he has. Because again, in the movie, he just doesn't feel like he fits with this movie. They had a good thing going with Katana, where she pulled out the sword and she was talking to it because it had the soul of her husband, who was killed by that sword that's able to capture souls. That could have been nice, but they should have fleshed that out a little bit more if we had gotten to know the character a bit more. And then we have Captain Boomerang. Why does he treasure that pink unicorn so much? A good explanation would have been that maybe he was abused as a kid, and the pink unicorn was the only thing that he had found comfort in, and that's what got him through his childhood. And then we got Killer Croc, who I think I would have felt much more sympathy for if we have seen him go through that transformation when he was younger. He was looked at as a freak that caused him to be like depressed and angry inside, and then the physical evolution brought out the animalistic nature inside of him. But hey, at least it wasn't the Joker Harley Deadshot show the entire time. We got to know a little bit about Diablo with his scene in the bar where he's explaining his backstory of how he killed his children and his wife, and why that's the turning point for him, where he's like, you know what, I'm done with all this, I'm a pacifist, I'm not gonna use my powers for evil, even though he still killed those dudes in the prison yard even after having done that to his family. So kind of counterintuitive, dude. But I did feel like I got to know him a little bit, and I felt sorry for him. So it's only fitting that he's the one to get killed formally, properly, unlike Slipknot. Or is he? That is a question that I left while walking out of the theater with my girlfriend. I asked her, like, do you think Diablo's dead? Because he is made out of fire, and we saw him turn into that Aztec god, which was pretty cool. But, you know, probably would have been a little more useful if he would have just let in with that. And the last thing I'll talk about is the first that DC has actually done to kind of get things going and step into the right direction to expand amongst this cinematic universe that they're trying to create. An end credit scene. Or more specifically, a mid-credit scene. We actually get our first mid-credit Easter egg at the end type of thing, because Batman vs Superman didn't have one, Man of Steel didn't have one, at least I believe it didn't. Now they're finally getting the ball rolling with that thing, because they know that with a superhero movie, whether it be from Marvel or DC, people are going to stay just in case for there to be something at the end of the credits, and they kind of gave us that halfway through with a scene between Amanda Waller and Bruce Wayne talking business. Pretty much they end up with a deal. Amanda Waller turns over her dossier of metahumans while Bruce Wayne provides protection over this whole deal that happened in the city and tries to cover it up. It's pretty much all the information on the metahumans, including our fellow Justice League members, The Flash and Aquaman. And it's pretty cool because it actually shows Bruce Wayne actively going out there trying to seek these guys out. Even though he's Bruce Wayne, he's not gonna know everything. He's not gonna be able to be like, oh yeah, this guy's and this guy's coming in from Atlantis. No, he's actually doing the research and the work to try to put the Justice League together, and it's nice to see him take the steps to do so. It's just a shame that I feel like this should have been the thing to lead in with the Justice League instead of the tacked on email scene from Batman vs Superman. I don't know why they didn't just go with this instead of that. Another interesting thing to take note of is the fact that Enchantress is actually amongst those files. Now I know that the ending left with Enchantress possibly dying, but June Moon, the actual doctor that she possessed, is still alive. Deus Ex Machina. But the fact that Bruce Wayne now actually has some knowledge over Enchantress, will she come back to some capacity in Justice League? Is the magical nature that she comes from, or whatever the hell that is, gonna have something to do with the plot of Justice League or Justice League Part 2? Justice League Dark, maybe? Who knows? All we know is that some people are angry and are trying to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down. So that's pretty much my spoiler discussion on Suicide Squad. I might have missed a couple of things, but I'm pretty sure that some of the other YouTubers that you guys watch, like Jeremy Johnson, Chris Stuckman, or whatever, have probably covered it. But that's the beauty of YouTube. Everybody has a different opinion, and everybody has different things to talk about, and we're all very diverse, just like the Suicide Squad. So thank you guys for watching. Please let me know what you guys thought on Suicide Squad. Go crazy, since this was a spoiler discussion. Please like this video, share it with all your friends, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.